First of all, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. This is such a joy for me to be able to share my experiences and any knowledge that I can share. My name is Bryann Fair. I'm from Middletown, Delaware, a little small place. It is very flat here, so there are no mountains around. It's a lot of farmland, which will be good for when we talk about training.
Yes.
um, yeah, so gosh, taking it back, I was never really like a full out athlete when I was younger. My main preference was dance. I danced my whole life pretty much up until about out of college. I moved back in with my mom, and she was like, you know what? If you're living with me, you're not sleeping in, you're going to come to the gym with me. So I was like, okay, I guess that's fair. So started working out, kind of got into the body competition kind of realm a little bit, especially with my dance experience. I was like, I could totally do this. Did that a couple of times. And actually, right before my last show that I did, my boss had asked me at the time and said, I signed up for this Spartan Sprint. It's like a fun obstacle course race through the mud. Like it'd just be a fun, like bonding thing for the manager. So I was like, okay, all right, I'll try this. Mind you, this was a week before my bodybuilding competition. So I'm like super, super lean. I'm like, I can't get cuts. I can't get scratches or bruises. And I'm like this, like, little dainty thing trying to do this obstacle course race. And man, when I got done that race, it was so fun and just so freeing. And I was like, this is amazing. So, long story short, I did my last body competition, and then I just started diving into Spartan races. And I was like, this is my jam. The following year, I bought my husband a pass, like a race pass for his birthday. And I was like, we're doing it this summer. Like, you're going to see what this is all about. And likewise, he fell in love. And I mean, the end is history. We've been doing Spartan races for the past 10 years now. And we've, before we had our daughter, we were traveling all over the place, trying to get all the Spartan races in that we could and just all the experience because we loved it so much. Yeah, and that's kind of what brought me to this place. I just kind of wanted to keep adding and challenging myself with distances and different venues and things like that. So, yeah, I kind of worked my way up to the ultra distance throughout that passion and kind of landed where I'm at now.
Yeah. Okay. Back up. I have a question. Where did you work that your boss was like, hey, we're doing this like Spartan race? Because I can only think of like maybe one place that I've ever worked in my life where my boss would have been like, hey, you want to do this Spartan race?
Yeah, so I worked for a loan company. It was a very small company. There was probably only about maybe like 15 employees, very small knit family. We were all pretty young. Even the owner at that time, I believe he was only like 32. So we were all pretty young. We kind of built it from the ground up, and we just, we were at that age where we were going out to bars after work and, drinking and hanging out and, just kind of having fun with it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so he was very active as well and into like biking and running. So he was like, let's do this. Let's do this. And yeah,
That's
unbeknownst to
cool.
me, it was, my passion. So
So were you doing any sort of run training while you were doing fitness competitions? Like, was that part of your training at all?
we were doing like fasted cardio for like 30 minutes before, and then we would do like a second session of lifting. But
Mhm.
really, that's it. I mean, I hated running. I hated running up. I couldn't even run a mile, really. I remember going to a park, Glasgow Park around me, and just doing run intervals, like point one and then walk, and point one and then walk, and then you just stick with it, and you find so much joy that can come out of it. And I was just like, wow, like you see the progress that you're making, and it's just like, wow, maybe I can do this, and I can find love in this sport that I really want to do, but it's just not working right now. So
Mhm.
yeah, so prior to, no, I didn't really have much running experience.
So educate me and everybody because maybe some people know more about Spartans than I do. I mean, all I know about Spartans is like I knew a little bit before, and then obviously like you and I worked together, so I went and did a little bit of a deep dive. But so when you say a Spartan sprint, what does that mean in terms of distance and obstacles and what are the different levels?
So there are. speaking about the obstacle trail races, there since Spartan started, they have added a bunch of different new avenues and different sub sub regions, I guess, for different venues and things like that. But I'll just stick to the basic Spartan Trail OCR races. So typically they are broken up into four different categories. There's the Spartan, sprint, the super, the beast, and the ultra, and they all consecutively get longer and
Mm.
longer. So the sprint is more like a 5K thing, like super is more like a 10 miler. They keep changing it too over the years, and it depends depending on the venue. But the beast, you're kind of more up towards like that half marathon, a little bit more than half marathon. And then the ultra is anything after 30 miles. Now, with that said, there are obstacles within that race, throughout that race. You don't really know there's no kind of science as to like where they're placed or how far are the obstacles like exactly from each other. We don't know that, but there are like a huge amount of obstacles that can be in this race. So I'm thinking like rope climb, sandbag carry, bucket carries, 8-foot walls that you have to jump over. What else do they have? There's a dunk wall that you have to like swim under. Um, Gosh, I mean, there's all different types of walls that you have to climb over, inverted, like rope walls that you have to climb over. So many things.
Yeah.
There's like a sled that you have to pull. So kind of like crossfitty obstacles, I would say, or workouts in between a little bit. Yeah, so you're not just running a race or a trail race. You're running, stopping, doing obstacles, trying to find the momentum again and keep going and so on and so forth until you finish. So
Are the obstacles the same at every race? Like, you're always going to get a rope wall, you're always going to get a sandbag carry, that sort of thing.
yeah, they do try to keep the main bulk of like the meat and potatoes of the obstacles. There are certain venues. There's one called the ape hanger. It's a very intricate obstacle where it's like a big dugout pit. They have 4x4s and it's really built up. So there are certain venues where they only have that because it stays year round. And that was actually one of the obstacles that was at my big ultra race that we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, so they do have some obstacles that only stick with some of the venues, but most of the time you are getting a sandbag carry. You're getting all those heavy carries and pulls, if you will.
Yeah. So your progression, so you did the sprint Spartan, and
Mhm.
then you sort of got hooked. Is the bulk of like your racing just Spartan races, or did you in preparation also try and do like some road 10Ks and trail 5K, that sort of thing, or did you just put all your eggs into the Spartan basket?
Yeah, for the most part, I did put everything into Spartan just because we loved it, and that's really all I knew. That was the first thing that I had ever done, so I was like, "This is fantastic! Like, I love these people. This is awesome. This is crazy, but we're all here doing it together."
Yeah.
Um, we did try. My husband and I thought it would be a good idea to maybe do a half marathon on the road. We did the Philadelphia Rocky Run. Uh,
How'd
after
that go?
it's like never again. I will never do a road race ever again if I can help it. Yeah, it's interesting just the differences that there are. I do feel like the trails are a little bit more forgiving, which is why I personally like it. I also love the scenery of just being in the forest and kind of zoning out with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, running on the road is a little scary to me. I'm not gonna lie. So,
Yeah. Well, I think most people that listen to this podcast would probably agree with you. We do
yeah,
it sort of like as a necessary evil, in
yes,
certain times, but it's
yeah,
probably collectively not our happy place.
for sure. Yeah.
So you did, so my assumption is like, okay, so you did the sprint, you did the super, you did the beast, you did a variety of these. So you
Hmm.
went from basically running, what amounts to roughly like a half marathon. And
Hmm.
then at what point were you like, I want to double down and I want to go and just skip right over the marathon because they don't offer it and just go right to the ultra.
Yeah, so there was this there's like another division that they have at Spartan. It's called the Hurricane Heat.
Oh.
And that was like a very popular thing. It's more like a military style. It's like 12 hours. You kind of just follow commands. It's like carrying a telephone pole with other people up a mountain, basically. It's like things like that. But I had done the beast already, that distance. So I was like, I wonder what's next. I want to know what's next. And my husband was like, I don't know if you're really down for this hurricane heat like thing. And I was watching videos and I was like, oh, you're right. I don't think so. I don't know if I can take someone like screaming at me and yelling at me. So, I came across the Ultra and I was like, oh, this sounds interesting, which is so how they do it in Spartan, the Ultra is 2 laps of the beast course. So you're
Mm.
basically doing that like half marathon distance. However, on the first lap, they always add anywhere from like 3 to 5 extra miles that you have to do, including more obstacles on that little route. So when you're on the beast course for the ultra, there's a split off, and the ultras have to go one way, and the beast people have to go the other way. So the second lap, they don't have to do that. We can kind of just follow the beast. So I was like, that's interesting, like 2 laps of the beast. And I kid you not, every time I got done running a race, or even out in the woods, if I had a long effort, I would ask myself and be like, I wonder how much farther I could go. Like if I had to go farther, how much could I go? It was always a question, just like, I don't know, like, who knows? Sky's the limit. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sign up for this New Jersey Spartan Ultra race. I believe it was 2018 was the first Ultra I signed up for. Um, yeah, I signed up, I did it, I finished, and I was just like, wow, this is insane. Like, it's just, I can't believe I did that. And I think I just got such a high from accomplishing something that I really didn't think I could do.
Hmm.
And I just ran with it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, what other races are there out there that I can do like this? Like, what's harder? What's more difficult than this race? And then yeah, it kind of spiraled a little hiccup because I got pregnant and had my daughter in 2019. So I was like, okay, we'll pause real quick. We'll pause on this. Then COVID happened. So,
Yeah.
everything was just getting shut down, everything left and right. During that time, I was trying to figure out another outlet. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to hit like 1,000 miles in a year because I had never done that before. Ended up getting plantar fasciitis because you know,
Too much, too quickly.
much. And I was just like, yeah, if I can't run an ultra race, I'm going to do this. And yeah, so that kind of put me a little bit in the hole. So I think, where are we at now? I think that was back in like 2022 now. Um, and I was like, okay, everyone in the Spartan community has noted and said and announced that the Killington Spartan Ultra race is the hardest, hands down, Spartan Ultra that you can do. And I was
How
like,
many ultras are there? How many Spartan ultras are there?
ooh, good question. Because they're all over the country, not just
Oh,
the
okay.
United States. I want to say the ultras are a little bit harder to find than the other, like, Sprint Super Beast.
Hmm.
I'd probably say maybe a dozen a
Okay.
year.
Just curious.
Yeah. And then their venues change too. So sometimes if their contract's up with a ski resort or something like that, then they change locations. But
And
so
are they, just for context, because I mean, I knew your race was at Killington, but are all the Spartans at some sort of ski resort, or is that really only reserved for the ultras?
uh, neither. Most of most of the mountainous races are at ski resorts. There are a lot of like they have races down in Florida
Hmm.
and North Carolina, and they have those southern races too. So it is a lot more flat there. I personally haven't been to any of those races, so I can't really speak to how those venues are.
Yeah.
But I have been to a couple where they're at like a raceway, like a motocross raceway kind of thing. So
Oh, yeah.
and then they go down into the creeks and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, some sort of like big venue though is what they're typically at.
Yeah, because these races attract a ton of people.
Yes, yes, a ton of people.
The other question I have is just for context. we talk about racing, a 5K, a 10 miler, half marathon, so on and so forth, but you're adding all of these obstacles into the mix. So my curiosity, not that you're like fixated on time, but I'm just curious, like, how long does it take you to complete these? Because I sort of have an idea in my head for me personally. Okay, how long would it take me to complete a 5K trail run, a 10 miler, so on and so forth? But now you're adding all of these obstacles. I would be curious to know, like, how much time that adds into the mix.
Yeah. Of course, it's like dependent on, distance and venue and everything like that. But for 5K, the sprint example, I would say it probably takes me like an hour, 10, hour, 15 minutes to finish. And that's probably with me running full out and then stopping at the obstacles. I did forget to mention too. Now, if you are racing in competitive age group, you have to either complete the obstacle once. So if you fail it, so if you are doing the monkey bars and you fall halfway through, that's fail. You don't get to try it again.
Oh,
Now, if you fail it, then you have to do a penalty loop. It used to be where you have to do 30 burpees. However, that was very difficult for the refs to kind of keep track of everyone. And it
yep.
was taking everyone so long to view the tapes because everything was recorded, like the pits were recorded. So it was just, yeah, it got a little crazy. So that now they had switched it to penalty loops. So now if you don't finish an obstacle, you have to go through this little penalty loop.
It's just like an offshoot loop that you have to
Yeah,
run. Okay.
yeah. Some are easier than others. I've been through some brutal ones, and I'm like, what is this nonsense? uh, and then others are really easy, and they can be easier than the obstacle itself. So that's kind of where strategic comes in, like strategy. If you're racing time or trying to hit a cutoff, that's kind of where you got to play your own game, in a sense.
Can you opt out of an obstacle and just preemptively take the penalty loop?
Yes, you have to touch the obstacle though, or
Okay.
attempt it, I should say. So, yeah.
Attempt in air quotes. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I think straight out of the gate. I mean, I've obviously not done one, and I know right now, like, I am definitely, like, I watch all of the training that you do, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, there's no way in my current state I could do half of the stuff I see you guys working on. So if I was either to do it like by myself or on a team, I'd be that one person that would be like, tap, I'm taking the loop, tap, I'm taking the loop. Especially for a few things I think about, like some of the climbing,
Yeah.
so see, I don't know. I don't know all the
Yeah.
obstacles, but I remember, I remember going over the list with you and being like, what is that? What is that? What is that? And in the back of my mind being like, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah. 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 But like I said, I feel like since it was the first thing that I've ever done, like
Yeah.
athletic wise, in that sense, it's just kind of all I've known, and this is how I've trained for the past 11 years now. And even now we'll get into it, like I'm kind of getting away from the Spartan realm, and but I'm still training that way because one, I love it, and two, it's out of habit. I do take away some things that I don't necessarily need right now, but I
Hmm.
kind of look at it as like just lifelong strength, like functional strength. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. To be able to pull yourself up and be able to hang from a bar. If I was ever in like a life-threatening situation and I needed to hold on for my life, I just have confidence that I feel like I could. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, totally. That's where I would fail. I have visions of me, I could probably do the monkey bars, but any of those like extended hangs or, any of that stuff, I'd be the one, I've seen videos of them having to do it across, the mud pit or the water. I'd be
Yeah.
the one crashing down into the pit below.
But I think that's what is special too about it because it makes you want to work towards things like that so you can get better. Like I remember when I was a newbie, I mean, I remember looking at these obstacles like there's no way. Like there's no way, and I had so much fear like I'm going to pull my shoulder, I'm going to fall and twist an ankle. But once you do it so often and you just try,
Hmm.
just there were so many times where I was like I'm just not even going to try it. Why would I sell myself short like that?
Yeah.
Just try it and you might get farther. And then the next time I might even get farther. So, and that's basically what happened.
Do you have like do you go to a specific gym that has some of those same elements? Like I'm gonna say this, and I know it's gonna sound silly, but like like the ninja. like the Ninja Warrior type gym that I know like there's lots of kids that go to that have all of that stuff set up. Like, is there the adult equivalent for that? Or do you just try and replicate as much of what you can like at the gym, with the stuff that's available?
I try to replicate everything. There is a gym that's probably like an hour away from me, but just it's too far of a distance for me to regularly go. I keep trying to convince the gym that I'm at now to put a rope climb in, but
It's a
liability
hard sell.
issues.
Yeah.
Liability issues. I'm like, well, but no, I
Yeah.
mean everything, including terrain. I mean, because I'm at sea level, the big races that I wanted to do are in the mountains, and that's
Mm.
where I want to be the most. So, yeah, I had to kind of recreate everything from scratch, and just kind of, social media wasn't too crazy back then. This was like 2014.
Hmm.
With like everyone sharing what they're doing and everything. So there weren't that many tips and tricks to kind of learn yet. And yeah, I was just kind of figuring it out on myself. I feel like now I kind of have like a solid layout of what, now there's tutorials on how to do everything and things like that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
just try to recreate what I can with what I have in the moment.
That's cool. So when you made the decision that you were going to do Killington, which it sounds like that's the apex of all Spartan ultras, was there a particular
Mhm.
aspect of it that you were kind of like nervous about, or was it just like, okay, this is just so much farther?
Yeah, so I will have to say too, I didn't mention when I was pregnant. So before that, I had done the Killington Beast before, so I had
Hmm.
been at the venue before, so I knew how brutal it was, even just the Beast. Like it took us out completely. Um, in 2021, was it 2021? No, when I was pregnant, so it must have been 2018. My husband actually decided to do the Killington Ultra. I volunteered at the sandbag carry. So I got to see kind of from start to finish and how cool it was, in a sense of seeing it from, because New Jersey, when I did the New Jersey race, I'll just, sorry, I'm backtracking a lot,
No,
but
it's
it
fine.
it took me about 13 hours to complete when I did the New Jersey Ultra. So just to kind of reference the time. When my husband did Vermont, it took, I believe it was a whole 14 hours. So we got to see the sunrise, the sunset, and even more. And I'll never forget, after I got done my volunteer shift, I was waiting for him at the end, and you just look up at the mountain and you see all of these headlights and lamps, and it's just so mind-boggling because you're just like so filled with awe, like, oh my gosh, and these are people who are fighting for their victory. Like, it's just
Yeah.
so cool. It's such a great experience. Like, I get overwhelmed thinking about it because you see all different types of people and walks of life out there.
Yeah.
And it's really encouraging. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Uh, so yeah, so that was like, okay, seeing my husband finish the race, I was like, okay, I think I could do this one day. So that was the first indicator in my head that I was like, okay, I'm going to come back and do this one day. And then fast forward, after I had my daughter, I started kind of training again. I had the plantar fasciitis issue, but I was like, that's okay. I'm going to take time off. I took like 3 months off running. Um, did some other stuff to keep up the cardio training and everything like that. And I did a couple of races here and there, obstacle races, like there's Savage, a few other companies do other races as well, like that. And 2021 was the year that I was going to do Killington. And I was like,
Mhm.
I'm in it. And I had just come off of the plantar fasciitis. And I think I only gave myself like, gosh, 2.5 months to train, I think. And I just had it as in my head, it was just no big deal. I was like, I got this. I've done this before. I've done Jersey. Like I've done it. I can do this. Like I got it. I watched my husband do it. Like I got this. It's in the bag. Well, it was not.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, I was just not trained enough. The week before the race, I actually went out on like a last shakeout run kind of thing. Injured my knee a little bit, I think because I wasn't trained enough and I was pushing it too hard. And yeah, I was actually like in a knee brace the whole week before
Oh,
the race. And I was just like, oh, well, this is interesting. Granted, when it came to race time, I felt fine. Um, However, yeah, I went out in that race and I just remember taking so much time at the obstacles and just stopping and just looking at my watch. And I was so mentally in my head, just like watching the time go by. And I was
mm,
just doing the math and I'm like, this window is getting smaller and smaller to my cutoff time. And I am not doing anything about it. I'm just kind of standing here freaking out. Like, uh, and push would come to shove, and I would start getting anxious. My heart rate I'd redline almost, and I would just be like, "What is going on?" And it was just utter panic, utter
mm,
panic. That's all I can say. And when I got to the transition area, I made it by like it was like 8 minutes. I had gotten there, and I just collapsed on the ground. My kneecaps were totally gone. My heart was like out of my body. Like I was just like, this feels awful. And I don't think if it took me that long to do the first lap, I can't even imagine. Like, there's no way I'm going to hit the cutoff time for the second because it's even shorter.
mm.
So, yeah, I kind of made the decision there to just kind of take myself out. And I'm very happy with that decision. At the time, I was very disappointed. But I definitely think I made the right decision because my body was just not in that shape to
Yeah.
perform well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard, that's hard. It's humbling too because you go into it with such a real high vibe, you're like, "Yes, I've got this." You're mentally
Mhm.
psyched up. You know that you're capable. Like somewhere in the back of your brain, you know that you're capable. And then it's hard to, be in it and then it's the kiss of death when you're looking at that watch and watching all of your time. And it sounds like you sort of just like you had like a freeze minute where you were just like, oh, like what, like what do I
Mhm.
do? Like I know time's passing me by. I know I need to get moving, but I'm like frozen. My feet are,
Yeah.
stuck to the ground, and I can't make a decision here or there. I've definitely been in that place too. Like especially if I've been lost in a race, I'm like, I'm watching time go by. I don't know where I'm going. There's no
Mhm.
flags. There's nobody else around me. Like what the hell, So I can
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming in the moment. Yeah.
So you got home and you sort of like licked your wounds, so to speak. How long
Yeah.
after how long after that did you decide you were going to get your revenge?
Well, so I flat out said I'm never going back. I was like, I'm never going back.
Plot twist.
There's
Okay.
yeah, like there's no point for me to do that. I was like, because if that's how
Interesting.
I was like, if that's how I feel, like there's no point for me to push myself to the point where I feel injured. And I hadn't given myself enough. I didn't back away from the situation far enough to realize that the training was the issue and that I really because I took time off running and I had my foot issue, like I
Mm,
I didn't really see that clearly. I kind of was just mad. Like just over it. And I was like, I'm never going back. So actually 2022 or whatever the following year, what was that? Yeah, 2022.
yep.
Right, I think. Yes. So I ended up doing two ultras back at New Jersey. And I
Mm,
was like, I'm going to do the fall because they always have at that venue they have one always in the spring and one always in the fall. So I was like, I'm going to do two ultras this year. Let me do that, and I'll do it at Jersey. It's like my safe place. I've done it before. They do change the courses every year, so the course is always a little different. So that year I did it twice. I think it was around the same times. It was like 11 hours, 12 hours it takes. It might have even been 13. I'm not sure, but somewhere in that range. And then the following year was 2023. And I ended up taking time off from the ultras and I wanted to focus on, they have a trifecta weekend, which is basically when you run the sprint, super, and beast all in one weekend. So I was like, I'm gonna focus on that. So 2023, I focused on speed more than distance, and I wanted to race competitively, like super competitively. Did that. I ended up placing second on the beast, which was like my biggest podium uh, accomplishment ever because it was such a big like oh my gosh, we were going back and forth. It was such a fun race. Like, I'll never forget that moment crossing the finish line. And yeah, it was just epic. So I really enjoyed the speed efforts, but I found myself really missing distance and the long distance. And I was like, ah, I kind of want to get back in there. But I also knew what was waiting for me because I already did Jersey a bunch of times. I was like, I can't go back to Jersey. We had talked about maybe flying, out west or other venues, but it was still Killington was the hardest. And I was like, I still hadn't done it. Like, I had unfinished business there. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I put it out in the universe. That's kind of when I came to you, and I was so fearful of this goal, and even admitting to myself that I wanted to go back there to see what I could do.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that was like the first real step, was like, okay, let me look at this and see what I can do. And you had so many tools that were so helpful. So yeah, that kind of
Yeah,
made.
I remember like when you first came in and we were like talking about your goal, it was interesting for me to sort of like watch you explain it, because you, on one hand, you're so pumped about it, and then on the other, you're very apprehensive because you're like, you got bit in the butt, but the
Mhm.
last time. So it was like, honestly, I mean, I told you this from the beginning. I was like, like I have no qualms. I think that you will be able to finish this 100% because you've clearly mastered all of the elements. We just got to get you on the mileage, track. Like, we got to get you fit so that,
Mhm.
you can literally endure 2 laps plus a bonus loop, for that race. So it was fun to watch you, like stack up your miles, and like as you were going, and every time we would check in, I could see that your confidence was really growing, because it was like,
Mhm.
oh, I just, I checked this distance off the bucket list. I did this one, I did this one, I did this, and then I did, some back to back stuff. And like, yes, I'm sore, but it's, I'm not
Mhm.
out, my legs aren't destroyed. And, you're doing all of your other physical training on top of it, all of the strength stuff, everything that's going to prepare you for those obstacles. So for
Mhm.
me, it was like really fun to like be like a passenger, kind of like watching you, go along, being on that ride with you. So it was super fun.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly how I felt. It was like, this is so terrifying, but I really want to do it and I'm so excited about it. So,
Well, I think that's what gets most people, right? Like, and a lot of us have that experience where, we have the confidence up to a certain point. We put ourselves out there, we try the thing, we don't make it, right? Like,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, either, we miss a time cutoff, or we pull ourselves from the race because we just know that we're not quite in good enough shape to be able to do it. And then so many people have obviously like unfinished business with
Mhm.
either a particular race in a particular place or a very specific distance. And some people can let it go, but my experience has been like that's a very small percentage of people that can let that go. Like most of us, myself included,
Yeah.
like have to get our revenge, have to execute that and like go back for that thing. So, and I think that's good because I think if you had let that go and just, not gone back and not tried again, you would always have the what if in the back of your brain, like, oh, what if I really did just like really focus on this and
Mhm.
go out and give it my 1,000% effort.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And looking back, I am so thankful, honestly, that I did DNF that race because it made me such a better athlete for the second time around, and it made me realize that, hey, you can't just run every race that you just think you can sign up for. Like, no, this race humbled me. It was very much so the hardest race I've ever done.
I'm so pumped that you said that you like are thankful for the DNF, because there are so many people who are terrified. They're like petrified of DNFing because
Hmm.
they think it says something about them, that they, sort of that mentality that you were talking about. Like, I'm never going to do this again. Like, I'm clearly not cut out for this. No, it's just like you just either didn't give yourself enough time, didn't do enough of the right stuff, underestimated how challenging it would be,
Hmm.
underestimated your level of preparedness. Like like that's that's my big thing about DNFs, where I'm always like, okay, great. Like, okay, you DNF'd. So what? Big deal. How are you going to fix it? How are you going to go back, like I said, and get your revenge, right, on
Yeah.
that race?
Yeah, exactly.
So you showed up on race day. So like walk us through a little bit about like, cause those races, like most ultras, especially, 50 milers, 100K, 100 miles typically start like pretty early in the morning, right? What time did you
Mhm.
guys start?
So there was two waves that went off. There was a 6 a.m. and then there was a 6:15. I was the 6:15 wave, so we went off at 6:15.
So was it dark? I can't remember. What time of year
Uh,
was
it
it?
was like it was like one of those annoying where it's like headlamps are mandatory to be on your head, but then like the sun's rising, and then like really everyone at the start line's like, you don't really need these. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it was kind of those where it's like within 30 minutes you really don't need it. Yeah, so we basically, I do want to say, I was the calmest that I had ever been before this race. And I do think you gave me amazing tools. Your visualization
Mm.
episode that you have, I listened to that a bunch of times. I was just so prepared and confident with myself that I was like, this is okay. Like, this is going to go great. Like I can write my own story today. This is going to be awesome. So I was just very calm, positive. And then the announcer sends everyone out, and we're going. And I will say Killington is not very runnable. Um, it's I mean, I finished. My watch had like I think it was 15,000 like 72 feet of elevation or something like that. So it's literally just up, down, up, down, up, down. Do it again, up, down, up, down.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not very runnable, which is why the Stairmaster was like my best friend. But we're going up, and I'm only three miles in, and we go down our first descent, and it's dewy out because it's still the morning and everything like that. It's foggy. You got all the morning vibes going on, and the rocks are just super slick, and I just fall right down on my knee, and I hear my knee pop, and I was just like, no, oh my gosh, no, this is not happening. This is so early in the race. And I started freaking out, and I was like, okay, sit. I sat, and all these people are going past me, and I'm like, it's okay, it's all right, this is super early, this is okay. And it did hurt in the moment, and I was like, all right, let's see how we feel. I kind of walked down a little bit, stretched it out, and I was like, okay, I think I can keep going. Let's see how this feels for like 25 minutes, and then assess from there. And it kind of went away, and I was like, this will probably bite me later, but knock on wood, like it never came back. And I was just, I was so in that moment when the flares were going off. I was like, no, this is my story. This is my story. This is not going to be how this race goes down. This 3.5 miles is not taking me out. So I kind of took it, and I was like, nope, we're going to forget that even happened and just move
Not
forward.
today, knee.
Yeah, not today. You're not taking me out. So yeah, I just kept going, and I mean, it was a brutal course. It was very brutal, but I was so prepared for it that I never questioned whether I deserved to be there, whether I could finish, whether I could make cutoff times. I never focused on any of that. And
Mm.
I think that mental state helped so much and throughout the beginning to the end. Because every time I listen to ultra runners, they always say how like the mental game is also at more so at the end, is when you need that extra push. But I feel like if you start reframing that mental state right from the beginning, or even before the race, I think that helps take you the whole distance, especially towards the end when you really need that push.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, there's a
So
lot
you
that
started
was.
out with you started out in the morning. So I want to like switch just to like a little bit of logistics because you mentioned
Mhm.
headlamps. Are you carrying a pack? Are you carrying water and food? Like how are you doing that?
Yes. So Spartan does not have aid stations.
Okay.
Everything is kind of self supported in a sense. You have one transition area which is your halfway point. It's a little bit more than halfway because you have that ultra loop, that first round. So it's around mile 18 is when you can have your bucket, and you're not allowed to take anything from, anyone outside of the transition area. So yes, I have my pack on. I have all my food, all my hydration stuff. They do have water stations, so I will say that for ultra venues, they do typically have like they'll have a table of bananas, like at some of the water stations. But you can't bank on those because you really truly have no idea what's going to be out there. So yeah, it is pretty much self supported though.
Hmm. So is the first, do they at least give you the opportunity to like warm up and run a little bit like before you hit an obstacle? Like how quickly do you encounter obstacles?
Usually they do stagger some at the beginning to kind of break up the whole pack.
Yeah.
So they do it strategically in a way, just to kind of break up the monotonous. And I feel like most of the races will start uphill to kind of help with that. But yeah, I mean, I could be running a quarter mile, a half mile before I hit my first obstacle. So I could still be warming up.
Hmm.
Actually, they have this fun thing. I forget what they call it, but they started this like 2 years ago, but it's a barbed wire crawl before you get to the start line, even.
Sure, that's totally fun.
I'm like, what? Let's get our feet wet before we even start. This is great. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, so it depends. But yeah, I mean, you just got to be ready for the obstacles at any point in time. And I mean, they're hard because they'll have walls when you're going uphill, like up the incline, and it's like, oh, I just have to stop and hurl myself over this wall. So yeah, it's nice to look ahead though. I mean, it's great to look ahead and see what's coming up next, which is nice when you study the map because then you kind of know like, okay, I need to slow down because I need to catch my breath for this next obstacle kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it is good to look ahead.
Was it, am I making this up or do am I remembering correctly that the map wasn't released until like the day before or two
It was
something
like
like that?
it's usually
Okay.
the couple of days leading up, like within the 5 days prior to. Yes, you typically don't know what the course exactly looks like until yeah, right before.
Yeah, that's a whole other element too. You know, typically when we talk about ultras, you're trying to gather up some of that information ahead of time, like what's the course look like? You know,
Hmm.
where are the aid stations? And you know, you had been here before, so you kind of know, but as you said before, they changed the course. And so not being able to know what the actual course is, not that I think you're going to get lost per se, because this is pretty well marked off, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not like your
Hmm.
typical ultra, so to speak, in many ways, but like in the fact
Yeah.
that you don't have to do any sort of like self navigation, you're pretty much just following
Yes.
the beaten path in front of you, right? So
Yeah.
to not know what obstacles, what order, what the course is, like, you know, that for a lot of people would be very unnerving. I think it would probably keep some people away from doing it because they would
Hmm.
want to know all of the things ahead of time.
Hmm. Yeah, of course. And in true Spartan tradition too, they love putting like all the hanging obstacles together so your grip really gets burnt out. Like they like to play with us out there, but
They don't take it easy on you.
yeah, no, but it's yeah, it is very helpful to study the obstacles definitely time because I don't know what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah. So you whack your knee on the rock, you get up, you rebound, you keep going. How like at what point what's entailed on that little mini like ultra loop? Because as I recall, there were some pretty brutal obstacles that are on that little mini extra bonus loop.
Yes, yes. So you're not only dealing with, like I said, the obstacles, but the elevation because you're at Killington. The grade, it's nothing like I've ever done. um, yeah, so I kept hearing people. So Killington is famous for it's called the Death March. It is a mile march up K1, which is, I guess, the highest mountain in Killington for the
Mhm.
ski resort there. So typically, that is the hardest part of the race. Typically, I had a lot of chatter going on that there was the same. similar ultra loop as the previous year. So I was kind of going back on what other people said. And I mean, people were saying how brutal this ultra loop was. It was 3 or 4 miles. I can't remember exactly how far. But there was sections where it was 40%, 50% grade. And I was just free. I even remember telling you I was freaking out about it. And well, you were like, well, you don't know that yet, right? That's just what people said, right? You don't know that for a fact, right? And I was like, you're right, you're right, you're right. So I kind of like, I was like, okay, just keep kind of keeping it in the back of my mind. And when I got to that part, I just remember looking straight up and I was like, oh, this is what they were talking about. Okay, all right. And it was so steep to the point where like anytime I looked down, I you would just get dizzy. It was so insane. I couldn't even believe that they were putting us up this mountain and then down also down the same grade. So on top of that, there were sections where we had to carry a sandbag. It's women's are, gosh, I want to say women's are 30. Don't quote me on this, 30, and I think the men's are 50 or 60, could be.
So are
Um,
you slinging that over your shoulder, over both shoulders? How are you carrying that?
so it depends on they have different sandbags too. So you don't really know what sandbag you're getting until you're
Mm,
actually there. This one was the pancake. So it's like a big circle almost.
yep,
Yeah, just like a big circle. So the best way, because you have your pack on, is to put it on the back of you and have the
yep,
pack help you carry it in a sense. They do have like longer sandbags where you
okay,
can kind of drape it over. But I mean, sometimes I gotta switch it to the front and kind of just like hand lock it in. But the one that we were doing were the pancakes. And I mean, going up and down this terrain with this sandbag, it was brutal. It was so brutal. And I think that was definitely one of the hardest parts, was that ultra loop with that carry. They also had a bucket carry as well, but for some reason it was a little bit more flat, and not as long as the sandbag. But yeah, that was definitely the hardest part for sure. Yeah, and they tell you not to stop during those because if you drop the sandbag, it's more effort to bend over, pick it up, and yeah, so you kind of just have to like stand in place and be like, okay, let's keep going.
I can't
uh,
even imagine. I can't even
yeah,
imagine.
yeah. So we got done the ultra loop, and then you basically crest this huge, you go right back up, and then you crest over into the venue. And at that point, I was probably about an hour ahead of cutoff time. So I was in good shape. I was like, I'm gonna make it there in time. Like I know I'm good. Actually, let me back up. I wasn't so confident the whole time, as in I'm gonna get there, because I kept telling myself things can happen still before I get there. Like I was very mindful of not to get overconfident and to just kind of like, let loose of everything. So I did have to kind of reel that in a little bit, but I was like, oh, we're good on time. And that was my biggest thing too. I was so afraid of not hitting that cutoff time because I was so close last time.
Yeah.
And that's why I probably wouldn't have finished, back in 2021 when I attempted it. Was there was no way I was going to finish in time with the condition I was in. So I was like, all right, like, let's do this. We got this. My nutrition was pretty great. I got to transition and I met my husband there. He kind of kept me on track because I was just so happy. I remember I like messaged you and you're like, what are you doing? Get off. Get off your phone.
I literally was like, I couldn't believe that you were messaging me. And I literally did write you back, like, get off your damn phone and go. Like, why are you wasting time?
Yeah, I took a couple of videos of myself and I was just like, this is so awesome. And I mean, yeah, it was funny. But there was this girl, mind you, there's not a lot of females. And I wish I knew how many females actually did this race, because I don't have the number. I think there was like 502 people that ran the whole race with male and female, but there was this one woman,
That
and
did the ultra or,
yes, that did the
oh,
ultra.
wow.
Yeah, so
That's a lot of people.
I don't know, is that a lot?
I feel like that's a lot for a Spartan Ultra, but I have no context. I mean, I know Spartans are big, like the community is big, everyone loves it, they're very diehard, but I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of, I think about, some of the 50Ks that I've been to that aren't even Spartans, that don't have that many people. But I mean, some of the bigger races like out west, I'm sure they probably get,
Yeah.
that
Okay.
many people easily. But I
Yeah.
guess I was just shocked because I don't think we had talked about the overall numbers.
Yeah, I don't think we did. But yeah, there was about 502 people that started the race. Um,
What's the
yeah,
finishing percentage?
it was 50. Actually, I had it written down. I had like couple notes scribbled down. I had
Because
50.
that to me, I think is like very interesting too. What the DNF percentage is for for whatever reason. Like because you always like, yeah, okay, 502 people started something this hard. Like, oh, I'm super curious how many people
Hmm.
actually finished it.
Yeah, no, 42% finished.
That's
So
good.
yeah, 58 was DNF.
Hmm.
Um, So yeah, but I'll never forget this woman during transition. She was literally screaming at us, and she's like, "Ultras, get out of here! Come on, let's go!" And she's pointing at me. She's like, you go!" And I ended up leaving with her, and she apologized after the fact, and she's like, "I'm sorry for yelling," and I was like, "No, no, no, girl! Like you got my ass going. Like that's what I needed." And it didn't really hit me until the second lap, and I started hearing other girls chatter, and I am very competitive, like down to my core. I like to say that I'm not, but when I'm out there, I mean, I just, it just takes hold of me. And I
What were
look at
they chattering about?
placement. So
Ah, gotcha.
yeah, yeah. So they were like, okay, so like we're number like 12, 13, 14 kind of thing. And this lady like looked at me and she was like, you're in 14th place. And I'm like, how do you know that
Yeah,
even? Like, I'm like, how do you know that? And then I'm thinking, and I was like, well, you have to think about all the people that started at 6 o'clock too.
yeah.
And they were like, we did start at 6. And I was like, oh, I started at 6:15. And they were like, what? I was like, yeah. So then I started thinking and I was like, oh, if they think that they're like 12 and 13th place, then I must be a little more ahead of
Ahead of
them
them. Yeah.
than that. So I started thinking and I was just like, okay, all right, like let's go. So I kept going and that's what my motivation was. And every time I saw a female ultra runner, I was just like, yes, let's go. And it all good, like all
Yeah.
great camaraderie, like everything. But yeah, just that competitive side just takes hold of me. And I was just like, yes, let's go. So I pushed myself. Nutrition was starting to kind of, you get the just tired of eating.
Yep.
What do you call that? I'm looking for I can't find the word, but yeah, I'm just like chugging water just to get anything down at this point
Hmm.
because I know that's what I needed. I did want to mention though, your episode with Julie Shobe, amazing. Like helped me with my nutrition so much. Like I have taken that rule of thumb and I've applied it going forward and it's helped me so much. So I really appreciate both of you for that.
Yeah,
Um,
she's a rock star.
yeah. So yeah, so I just kind of kept on my calories and all that stuff and I was feeling pretty good and I it was really mind-boggling to me how great I felt. Like I usually get like all these knee joints and aches and my ankles usually start like feeling like they're rubber and I really held it together pretty well. Uh and I'm trying to think if there was one last really hard push and it was really towards the end. I think it was like mile 29 and it was that last crest up the hill that we had to go into the venue
Hmm.
and right at the bottom of the mountain there's a 8-foot wall that you have to climb over. And that was like I think it was probably it was like the seventh to last obstacle and I was just like so tired and so exhausted at this point. And I was like, to get the energy at that point, the obstacles were very difficult. It was
Yeah.
just a lot of energy. Plus, like you're hooking your arm. So in the same spot, I would have bruises start forming. And
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel all of this now. And that last wall, just, I remember hooking my arm and just hanging there at the top. And people were yelling at me. They're like, "You got this." And I'm like, I
Give
know.
me a second.
I know. I'm like, I literally, if I could move faster, I would. And I got done that hill and I was like, that's it. Like, let's go crush it and finish this damn race. And I did. And yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. So take me back for 1 second, just because I'm curious
Yeah.
about the timing. So you did your first loop, which included the little ultra loop. How long did that take you? You said you were an hour ahead of the
Um,
cutoff.
yes. Cutoff was it 2:30? Hold on.
We
Um,
could go back and check the text messages.
yeah, it was 2:30 was the cutoff that, or I'm sorry, it was 3:30 was the cutoff. And I made it to transition at like, it was like two, I don't know. It
Okay,
was
so it took you
2:30.
roughly 8 hours. We'll call it 8 hours to get
Yeah.
that first loop through because you started at 6:15. Yeah, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, what time did you actually finish the whole thing?
So I finished it in, my final time was 13 hours and 16 minutes. So it
Love it.
was it was around 7:30. The cutoff was 9 p.m.
Oh, cool.
So I had about an hour and a half to spare. And
Did you
then
need your headlamp for that last little bit?
yes, I
You
did. I
did.
did end up having to put it on, although we were more towards the venue festival ground, so it was a
Yeah.
little bit more lit up there. But yeah, I did have it on for certain sections and things like that. And there's this ring obstacle, like you have to do these like rings to get through right before the finish line. And I did it the first lap, or I'm sorry, I didn't do it the first lap because they cut you off into the transition area. But I was like, okay, this is the last obstacle, like to the finish line. Like I can't fail. So I did it, and then I'm at the last rung, and I could not. I lost my momentum. So I'm just like wailing around like this, and my husband's screaming at me, and I just couldn't. And I dropped down, I smiled, and I was just so happy. I was just like, I don't even care. Like the finish line is literally right here. Like I just have to do this little loop, penalty loop, and then I'm done. And it didn't even bother me. I was just so happy
That's
to
awesome.
be done. Yeah, but
So
yeah.
did you end up placing?
So I did. I got first in my age group. Uh, there was, I think there was only like three or four of us. So it
Nope, it
was,
doesn't matter. You still got first in your age group. I
yeah,
don't
so
want to hear it. There was only 3 or 4. You got first in your age group.
yes, thank you. Yeah, it was a big surprise because I definitely wasn't expecting that. I mean, I kind of knew I was towards somewhere towards the beginning, but I couldn't gauge exactly where.
Mm.
And then I ended up being ninth overall, so that was a pretty awesome finish as well compared to
Top
everyone
10,
else.
baby.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Hmm.
You gonna do another one?
So I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe, but
Yeah.
it is the hardest race. Last year was my 10th year running Spartan. Uh, Now as I've been, involved with the trail running community, I
Hmm.
have really found interest in longer distance. Uh, I'm sad that I'm kind of letting go of the obstacle side of things, but I can still do those races if I want to. Yeah, I feel like my next road is kind of into the 50s, hundreds. I mean, the 200s really entice me, but there's a lot of logistics there. So yeah, so I'm kind of just taking it one step at a time in that direction to kind of see what feels good.
Yep.
But yeah, my next one is going to be a 50 miler just to see. It's very different though because I know I have the endurance for 14 hours.
Hmm.
So I'm curious to see the difference of a 50 miler because I think it's going to take me around the same time to complete it. It's just totally different layouts of races.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm just kind of curious to see what the trail running community is more like instead of the Spartan. So
Do you have a 50 miler picked out already?
I do. I'm going to do the Wawayanda Trail Race up in New Jersey. So it is kind of actually around the New Jersey area where the Spartan race is, and it's
Hmm.
actually the same weekend as the Spartan Ultra in New Jersey. So, um, yeah, yeah.
When is it?
It's April 26th.
Holy cow, it's coming up.
Yes, yes, it's coming up right around the corner.
So how are you feeling? Because you're like a month and a little bit away.
Yeah, I feel pretty good with it. I feel confident. I did a race simulation earlier this week with 31 miles, and
I
I feel
saw that.
pretty solid. I will also attest to your shakedowns and mobility because I'm telling you, after I finished Killington, I had never been in such great shape as I was, and I attest that to mobility work. I mean, the little joints and ligaments, and they would always scream at me after ultras. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was very sore and very tired, but not to the point where like I couldn't walk, or even like later that week, it would take me out a week where I wouldn't even do anything. And it wasn't like this time around. And especially for it being the hardest race that I had done, I
Yeah.
was very impressed with how I was able to recover uh, through that
Yeah.
training.
Well, I think that has a lot to do, with your dedication to the training as well. It's one thing to like do mobility work and, do 5 minutes this week and then maybe 5 minutes 2 weeks from now. It
Mhm.
really comes down to, getting good with the shakedown and trying to chip away at some sort of mobility a couple times a week because obviously it's it's a practice just like yoga, just like running, just like strength training. It's
Mhm.
unfortunately it's tricky because it's the hardest thing to convince people to do because they don't necessarily see the payout as quickly as
Mhm.
strength training or running or things like that. So, but that's not going to stop me from from trying to convince people of it. But it is one of those things that if you make a very concerted effort, you will 100% see some sort of positive outcome from it, whether it's after your long run, whether it's after your race,
Mhm.
whatever it might be. It's there. You just have to stick with it and keep doing it.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree with you. It's definitely not the hottest thing to watch or do or anything like that. But I will say it makes me feel so good afterwards that I actually get excited to do it now. And I mean, I do mobility every single day, and I do it every night. It's just kind of part of my night routine because I feel so much better genuinely. And I think that's helped take my running so much farther.
Mm.
Uh, than it would be without it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's super important for everybody, obviously. But as you start to get into ultras, because your body does really take a pounding on the trails, and
mhm,
especially you doing, Spartan races, and, you mentioned getting the bruise on your arms, from holding on to things like that. It is part of that process to be able to, rebound from that stuff. And the only way that you're going to be able to withstand 50K, 50 miles, 100, so on and so forth, is to kind of put your, we talked about this in the group all the time, is like get into some really funky positions and try and, settle in there, but then
mhm,
also generate force, into and out of those positions. Because if your range of motion is just comprised of what you do on a day to day basis, it's
mhm,
probably a lot smaller than what you are truly capable of with a little bit of work, like with a little bit of, funky
mhm.
positions and awkward stretching. And, it does look very different. Like if you're going to do it at the gym, you're going to look a little, people are going to
Yeah.
be like, what is that person doing? But you'll probably have a leg up on them if they're not currently doing any mobility. So it's sort of like a secret weapon, especially for ultras, that I feel like
Mhm,
everybody should know about and everybody should be doing.
mhm. Yeah, just for life in general too. Like I want to be able to move when I'd love to be able to run until, I'm 80 years old, but just being able to pick something up off the ground or being able to squat down, when I am older,
Hmm.
that's the way that I kind of look at it, and I think it makes it easier to do it because it's not just like you have to do this for training. It's more just
Yeah.
for life,
Hmm.
really.
I have some older clients at the gym that I work at that I teach an exclusively like mobility class for seniors, which is super fun. And I get a lot of positive feedback from those guys because many of them grew up just doing maybe some sports, but mostly just like sort of living, their day-to-day lives. And um, they always give me a hard time when they see me bring out all of the props, the ankle weights and the we have these old sort of like think like Jane Fonda era steps, like aerobic steps.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I use those for them to practice like squatting or stepping up onto or stepping down. And so they always give me a hard time about these things when they see me pulling out all these props. But by the time we're done, you can see it. They're like, oh my God, they're rolling their shoulders and they're stretching,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh my God, I feel so good. And then obviously the biggest testimonial is like, they keep coming back. So clearly, they know that it's benefiting them in some way. But I take a lot of like my inspiration from them because that's what, that's the place I want to be. Like, I want to be able to do
Right.
some of this stuff when I am older. And I
Mhm.
know that if I neglect it now and be like, it's, yes, it's a nice to have. It would be great to do, but I don't really need to do it. That I can kick that can down the road for years and decades and, eons, and then end up in a place where, I can't walk, I can't balance, I'm not able
Right.
to live independently, drive myself to and fro. So it's like it's one of those things that I think you have to be and dare I say this, I'm going to eat my words later, but like I feel like you have to get to a certain point in your life, whether that's like you hit 40 or I don't know, like maybe it's something as if there's another age where you start to realize like, okay, I'm not, as much as I feel like I'm still 26, right? Like I'm not. And if I keep
Right.
treating myself like I am 26, this vessel is going to break down real
Mhm.
quickly. And it's not because of the running per se. It's because of the
Mhm.
lack of care, overall lack of care and attention to detail, like shakedowns, like stretching, like
Mhm.
mobility, like sleep, like hydration, like
Yes.
good nutrition, all of the things.
Yeah, it's almost like recovery needs to be a little bit more than what your training is.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's if you were to really if you were probably to look at my training peaks in a day, you'd be like, or on Strava, because I am hooked up to Strava, even though I don't use it, but you'll see like morning activity, like, because I don't go in and edit anything, but you would be
Yeah.
like, what is she doing throughout the day for like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there? But like, if you looked at it all together, you'd probably think I was training for like 4 hours a day.
Mhm.
And really, that's not. I mean, I guess in a sense, it's all part of training, but
Yeah.
yeah, most of that is just stretching, recovery, sauna, yoga kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and it really does make a huge difference.
Yeah. And I like what you were saying about how your activities are spread out all over the day because a lot of people will push off the stretching or push off the mobility or they're just the thing that they don't love as much as their primary. So perhaps running, perhaps cycling, whatever it is, because they think it has to be some long drawn out workout. So it's like, oh, I got to
Hmm.
run for an hour and then I got to stretch for an hour. It's like, no, just take 5 or 10
Hmm.
minutes, just take 5 or 10 minutes on the front end of that, like, and do a shakedown before you run. I promise your run's going to feel a whole hell of a lot better. You're not going to need 2 to 3 miles to like warm up. You can,
Hmm.
maybe feel warm after a mile, you know what I mean? Because you've like worked out all the kinks ahead of time. And
Hmm.
then just bake 5 minutes worth of stretching here. If you're watching TV, lay down on the floor, do a couple stretches, do a little 90-90. Like there's ways to,
Hmm.
sprinkle this stuff into your day that doesn't require you to, change clothes per se,
Hmm.
or, bust out your yoga mat or like need to go to the gym. You can do it in these little bite-sized pieces that makes it very much a part of your day rather than like, okay, now I'm going to separate myself from my family or whatever. And I have to go over here and be segregated and do this
Hmm.
whole little piece of work. Like, no, you could actually just like there's so many nights where I'm downstairs like watching TV with my friends and family and I'm just like I'm the one that's on the floor, contorting
Right.
myself into different shapes and
Same.
doing all this
Same.
crazy stuff.
Yeah, exactly. TV, game night, whatever. My
Mhm.
daughter will be like, "Can we do a game?" I'm like, "Yeah, can we do it on the floor?" Yeah, like sure, I'm down. And
Yeah.
you could hold stretches while you're playing. But I think getting into that routine of doing it is the key, because once you've created that groove and that, route, it's easier for you to find those windows of time to be
Yep.
like, "Oh, let me do this real quick, like while
Yep.
I'm doing this." So,
Yeah. It's that mindset piece too. Like if you can, you know, get over the hump or break down that barrier to it's got to be a whole 30-minute thing. Like
Mhm.
if you can really adopt the mindset of, something is better than nothing. If it's, 1 minute, 2 minutes here and there, like 1 or 2 minutes every couple of hours throughout the day, that stacks up to be probably 30 to 40 minutes, perhaps, like depending
Right.
on, how
Mhm.
much you're doing. And it's like, we have been conditioned, I think, to a certain degree to be like, well, it's got to be, I've got to do it in this like neat box, so to speak, this neat
Mhm.
time frame. And like 1 minute here or 5 minutes there doesn't count. Like, no, actually, it really does.
Mhm.
Just like, increasing your step count throughout the day is definitely going to help in your running. People are like, how? I'm not
Yeah.
running. It doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, but are you like on your feet and moving
Mhm.
versus sitting on your butt in front of your computer, whatever you might be doing or driving? Yeah. So, like, that's definitely going to help.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
So, if there's somebody that's listening to this that has been like thinking about doing a Spartan, maybe not an ultra straight away, but like, you mentioned how there weren't that many women who are
Mhm.
potentially doing them, and we typically have a predominantly we do have some guys that listen to the podcast, which is amazing,
Yeah.
but we do predominantly women. So, what would you say as your like? Is there a piece of advice? Is there a tip or a trick that you might give them if they're considering, but like kind of nervous to dip their toe into the Spartan or obstacle course game?
Yeah. Uh yeah, just try it. It's fun. It's a fun way, especially if you have a group of friends interested or family that's interested or even just one buddy. I mean,
Hmm.
not even if you're by yourself, there's so many people out there. Like I said, there's so many different walks of life that go out there by themselves, where they're just trying to make friends and, find their own path. So, yeah, I think if it's something that you have a pull to do, then do it and find a way that you can do it. And
Yeah,
you might enjoy the time that you're there in the training, and you might just fall in love with the end result as well. So you never know
that's
what could
awesome.
come from it. But yeah, don't be scared. Just think of it as a fun run for you.
That's what I would say about an ultra. Just think about it like a fun run. You're going to make a lot of friends as you
Yeah.
go. There are lots of people that show up, like you said, that are by themselves or don't have friends or
Mhm.
family to support them, and they just, go and run it solo. And I've made some of my like best friends out there just like running. Didn't know them before, and then, here we are like running at the same pace, and you chit chat with people, and then
Mhm.
you become buddies.
Yeah, the obstacles may seem intimidating, but really, I mean, if you're in the open crowd, everyone's helping each other get over. If you can't get over something or through something, you just go around it. I mean, everyone's there to help everyone see each other succeed. So, I
Mm,
mean, yeah, it's don't be deterred from anything if that's really what you want to do. There's a
yeah.
will, there's a way.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing all of your Spartan knowledge with all of us and inspiring everybody to go out and do it. I am super pumped to. I feel like you hid this from me. I feel like you hid this 50 miler from me. So I'm like
This
kind
is
of upset.
actually the first time I'm really saying it out loud. So, yeah, I think I kind of alluded to it the other day when I did my like race sim because I was like, what would it be like to go 20 more miles? Uh,
Yeah,
but I haven't
that
really.
was my first inclination. I was like, someone has a secret.
Yeah, so I haven't really announced it yet. But yeah, we're going to try the 50 miles in April, see how that feels. Potentially another one at the end of the year, maybe. So we'll see. We'll see where this distance takes me. And yeah, if I
Well, you'll have to come back after you finish your 50 and give us the lowdown because that just sounds like fun. Like you could compare and contrast Spartan Ultra,
yeah,
50K to a non Spartan 50 miler.
for sure. I'm excited to see the difference and I'm
Awesome.
excited to share.
Yes. Yes. You must report back.
I
And
will.
no text, I don't care. No texting me during the race.
No,
Just
no,
focus on your
yeah,
plan.
yeah. The
Are you
interesting part there are like, so in a Spartan race, I will say my last thing, you're not allowed to listen to music at all. So now this is interesting because now I can listen to podcasts and music and see what happens.
are you going to have a pacer?
No, I don't think they're allowed to have pacers for this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
But yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for having
Amazing.
me.
Yes, I can't wait to do it again. It's been so much fun.
Yes.